You may be seated, and if you are a guest with us today, we welcome you. Whether you're sitting in this room in an overflow space or watching from somewhere across the world, we want you to know that you are not here by accident. You may not even know why you clicked on this, why you showed up, or why you decided to stay. But we believe there is purpose in this moment. And if you are not a follower of Christ, we especially want to say, you are welcome here. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to perform. You don't have to believe everything yet. You can sit, listen, wrestle, question, and observe. You can belong before you believe. And we pray that somewhere in this moment, not by pressure, not by manipulation, but by the power of God, something would begin to stir in your heart. I want to be honest with you from the beginning. What I'm about to share is not light. It's not easy. It's not something that will necessarily make you feel comfortable, but it is something that can change your life if you receive it with an open heart. I'm not here to condemn you, and I'm not here to shame you. I'm here because I believe truth, even when it's heavy, has the power to set people free. There are some things in life that we can afford to take lightly. There are some things we can joke about, ignore, or delay. But there are other things, serious things, that if we ignore them long enough, they begin to destroy us from the inside out. And one of those things is sin. Now, that word alone can make people uncomfortable. Some hear it and immediately shut down. Others hear it and think of religion, rules, or judgment. But sin is deeper than that. It is not just a list of bad actions. It is a condition. It is a force. It is something that has affected every part of humanity. Every broken relationship you've experienced, every regret you carry, every moment you wish you could undo. Somewhere at the root of it, sin is involved. It is the reason why we hurt each other. It is the reason why we hurt ourselves. It is the reason why even when we know what's right, we still find ourselves doing what's wrong. And the truth is, it's not just out there in the world, it's in us. It's in me. It's in you. It doesn't matter how good you think you are, how moral you try to be, or how well you hide it. Every human being has been touched by it. The danger is not just that sin exists. The danger is how casually we treat it, we excuse it, we justify it, we minimize it, we hide it, we keep it close, like something we can manage, like something we can control. But the reality is, the longer we hold on to it, the more it begins to control us. There are habits people have been trying to break for years but can't. There are thought patterns that keep repeating. There are behaviors that bring guilt, regret, and shame, but still continue. And over time, people start to believe a lie. This is just who I am. I can't change. But that's not true. The problem is not that change is impossible. The problem is that we often approach sin passively. We treat it like something small when it is actually something serious. We negotiate with it instead of confronting it. We try to manage it instead of removing it. And that's where the warning comes in. There is a message that challenges us to take sin seriously, not in a way that leads to fear or despair, but in a way that leads to freedom. The idea is simple but powerful. Don't play with what is slowly destroying you. Think about it like this. If something in your life was physically harming you, if you knew it was damaging your health, your future, your relationships, you wouldn't treat it casually. You wouldn't say, I'll deal with it later. You would act. You would take it seriously. But when it comes to internal things, habits, thoughts, desires, we often delay. We say it's not that bad, or I'll fix it eventually, or everyone struggles with something. And while that may be true, the danger is in staying there, because what you tolerate, you eventually normalize. And what you normalize begins to shape your life. There are people who look back on their lives and see patterns they wish they had broken earlier, decisions they wish they had avoided, situations they wish they had walked away from, and often it started small. Something they didn't deal with, something they kept around, something they thought they could control, but it grew, and that's what sin does. It rarely shows up in its full form at the beginning. It starts small, subtle, almost harmless, but over time it deepens, it spreads, it affects more areas of your life. That's why the call is not just to acknowledge it, but to deal with it aggressively, not violently, not destructively, but intentionally, seriously, decisively. If something in your life is leading you in the wrong direction, you don't just manage it, you remove it. If a pattern keeps pulling you back, you don't just tolerate it, you confront it. If something is feeding negativity, temptation, or destruction in your life, you don't keep it close. You create distance. That might mean changing your environment. It might mean changing your habits. It might mean changing who you spend time with. It might mean setting boundaries you've avoided. And yes, it might be uncomfortable. Change usually is. But discomfort in the short term is often the price of freedom in the long term. There's also another layer to this. What's happening internally? Not everything is visible. Some of the most powerful struggles happen in the mind and heart. Thoughts, emotions, attitudes, things that no one else sees but still shape your actions. Jealousy, bitterness, pride, unforgiveness, anger. These things don't always show on the surface, but they influence how you see others, how you respond to situations, and how you live your life. And if left unchecked, they grow just like external behaviors. Dealing with these requires honesty. It requires being willing to look at yourself and admit what's really going on. Not what you want people to think, not what looks good on the outside, but what's actually there. And that's not easy. It's easier to point out what's wrong with others than to face what's wrong within ourselves. It's easier to compare, justify, or distract than to confront. But growth doesn't happen through avoidance. It happens through awareness and action. Now, here's the important part. This is not about perfection. No one gets everything right. Everyone has struggles. Everyone has areas they're working through. The goal is not to become flawless overnight. The goal is to stop living in denial and start moving toward transformation. And that's where hope comes in, because you are not expected to do this alone. There is help available. There is strength beyond your own. There is grace, not as an excuse to stay the same, but as the power to change. Real change doesn't just come from trying harder. It comes from aligning your life with something greater than yourself. It comes from renewing your mind, shifting your focus, and building habits that support the person you're becoming. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is in what you love. The more you love what is good, healthy, and life-giving, the less appealing destructive things become. It's not just about forcing yourself to stop doing something. It's about replacing it with something better. At the same time, developing a healthy awareness, even a dislike for things that harm you, can be transformative. When you begin to see clearly what certain behaviors are doing to your life, it becomes easier to let them go. Not because someone told you to, but because you understand the cost. And understanding changes everything. At the end of the day, this is about direction. Where is your life going? What patterns are shaping your future? What are you holding on to that you know you need to release? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones, because ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. It only delays the outcome. But facing them honestly, courageously, can change everything. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to keep repeating the same cycles. You don't have to carry the same weight. You can change, you can grow, you can move forward. But it starts with a decision. A decision to stop playing with what's harming you. A decision to be honest about where you are. A decision to take action even if it's small at first. And maybe today that decision is simply this: to acknowledge that something needs to change, not tomorrow, not eventually, now, because the sooner you deal with it, the sooner you begin to experience freedom. And that's what this is really about, not restriction, not control, not fear, freedom. Freedom from patterns that hold you back, freedom from habits that drain you, freedom from thoughts that limit you, a life that is not driven by impulse, but by purpose. So take a moment, reflect, be honest with yourself. What is that one thing or maybe more than one, that you know you've been avoiding. What is that area you've been excusing, managing, or hiding? Bring it into the light, because what stays hidden keeps its power, but what is exposed can begin to change, and change, even when it's difficult, is always worth it. You don't have to fix everything at once, but you can start right here, right now. You may be seated. If you're here for the first time, or even if you've been here before, but you're still trying to figure things out, I want you to know you are welcome. Whether you're sitting in a room full of people, watching from your phone, or listening quietly somewhere by yourself, this moment matters. You didn't just randomly end up here. There's purpose in this. And if you're not a follower of Christ, there's no pressure on you to pretend. You don't have to fake agreement. You don't have to act like you understand everything. You can sit, listen, observe, and wrestle with what you're hearing. You can belong before you believe. And my prayer is that something would begin to shift in you, not because of emotion, not because of hype, but because truth has a way of reaching places inside of us that nothing else can. I want to be honest right from the beginning. What I'm about to say is not easy. It's not light, and it's not something most people naturally want to hear. But sometimes the things we avoid the most are the very things we need the most. And if you can lean in even just a little, this could be something that changes how you see your life. There are certain problems in life that we recognize immediately. If something is physically wrong, we feel it. If something is broken, we notice it. But there are other problems that are deeper, quieter, and more dangerous because we learn how to live with them. We adjust to them. We normalize them. Sin is one of those things. And I know the moment that word is said, different thoughts come into people's minds. Some think of rules, others think of guilt, others think of judgment. But sin is more than just a religious term. It's a reality that affects every human being. It's not just about what we do, it's about what's happening inside of us. It shows up in the decisions we regret. It shows up in the patterns we can't seem to break. It shows up in the things we hide from other people. It's in the tension we feel between who we are and who we know we should be. And the truth is, it doesn't just exist out there in the world, it exists in us. Every person, no matter how good they appear on the outside, has areas in their life that are not right. Areas where they compromise, areas where they fall short, areas where they struggle. The issue is not that we struggle. The issue is how we respond to that struggle. Because most people don't deal with it directly. Instead, they learn to live around it. They make excuses. They minimize it. They compare themselves to others and say, at least I'm not as bad as that. They push it aside and focus on other things, but ignoring something doesn't remove it. It only gives it time to grow. Think about anything in life that's left unchecked. A small problem, if ignored, becomes a bigger problem. A bad habit, if repeated, becomes a lifestyle. A thought, if entertained long enough, becomes a belief, and that's exactly how sin operates. It rarely shows up in its most destructive form at the beginning. It starts small, subtle, almost harmless, but over time it grows roots. It becomes part of your routine. It begins to shape your decisions, your relationships, and your future. And one of the most dangerous things we can do is treat it casually. We treat it like it's something we can manage, something we can control, something we can keep close without it affecting us too much. But the truth is, the longer we hold on to it, the more it begins to hold on to us. There are people who know exactly what they need to stop doing, but they keep doing it. Not because they want to be stuck, but because they've gotten used to it. It's familiar, it's comfortable. Even if it's destructive, it's known. But comfort is not the same as freedom. Just because something feels normal doesn't mean it's healthy. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's right. And just because something has been part of your life for a long time doesn't mean it has to stay there. There is a call not to ignore sin, not to manage it, but to deal with it. And not passively, not casually, but seriously. because what you tolerate today will shape your tomorrow. If something in your life keeps pulling you in the wrong direction, you can't keep pretending it's not a big deal. If a habit continues to bring negative consequences, you can't keep making room for it. If something is slowly affecting your mindset, your relationships, or your purpose, you have to make a decision about it. And sometimes that decision is not easy. It might require you to let go of things you've been holding on to for a long time. It might require you to change your environment. It might require you to distance yourself from certain influences. It might require you to be honest in ways you've been avoiding. But avoiding discomfort now often leads to greater pain later. There are two areas where this really shows up: outward actions and inward thoughts. Outwardly, it's the things people can see, the behaviors, the habits, the choices. These are often easier to recognize because they have visible consequences. But even then, people still struggle to change them because they've become part of their routine. Inwardly, it's deeper. It's what happens in your thoughts, your emotions, your attitudes. It's the things no one else sees but still affect everything you do. Things like pride, things like jealousy, things like anger, things like bitterness, things like unforgiveness. These don't always show up immediately in obvious ways, but they influence how you respond to life. They affect your relationships. They shape your perspective. And if they're not addressed, they don't disappear, they grow. Dealing with these things requires honesty. It requires you to look at yourself without excuses, to admit what's really there, even if it's uncomfortable. And that's where many people struggle the most. It's easier to focus on what others are doing wrong than to confront what's wrong within ourselves. It's easier to stay busy, distracted, or entertained than to sit in a moment of reflection and face reality. But growth begins where honesty starts. You can't change what you refuse to acknowledge. And once you begin to acknowledge it, the next step is to take action, not drastic, overwhelming action, but intentional steps. Sometimes it starts with removing something that's feeding the problem. Sometimes it's setting boundaries. Sometimes it's replacing a negative habit with a positive one. Sometimes it's seeking accountability, being willing to talk to someone instead of hiding. And sometimes it's simply deciding that you don't want to live like this anymore. That decision matters more than you think, because change doesn't happen all at once. It happens through consistent, intentional choices over time. Small decisions that move you in a different direction. And here's the encouraging part. You are not powerless. It may feel like certain patterns are too strong, too deep, too ingrained, but they are not unchangeable. People change, lives change, directions change, but it requires effort. It requires commitment. It requires a willingness to do what is difficult in the moment for the sake of something better in the future. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is in what you value. When you begin to value growth, peace, purpose, and truth more than temporary satisfaction, your decisions start to change. When you begin to see the long-term impact of your choices, short-term temptations lose some of their power. At the same time, it helps to develop a clear understanding of what certain behaviors are actually doing to your life. Not just how they feel in the moment, but what they produce over time. Because everything produces something. Every habit produces a result. Every pattern produces a direction. Every choice produces a consequence. And when you become aware of that, it changes how you approach your life. This is not about fear. It's not about living in constant anxiety or guilt. It's about clarity, seeing things for what they really are, understanding that your life is being shaped one decision at a time, and realizing that you have a role in that process. You may not control everything that happens to you, but you do have control over how you respond. You do have influence over your habits, your mindset, and your direction. And even if you've made mistakes in the past, even if there are things you regret, you are not stuck there. The past may explain where you are, but it doesn't have to define where you're going. You can choose differently. You can start again. You can move forward. But it begins with a moment of honesty, a moment where you stop avoiding, stop excusing, stop delaying, and simply acknowledge what needs to change. Maybe for you, it's a habit you've been trying to ignore. Maybe it's a pattern in your relationships. Maybe it's something internal, an attitude, a mindset, a way of thinking. Whatever it is, don't push it away, fucks it. Because the sooner you deal with it, the sooner you begin to experience freedom. And freedom is not about doing whatever you want. It's about not being controlled by things that harm you. It's about living with intention instead of impulse. It's about being able to make choices that align with who you truly want to be. So take a moment, slow down, think about your life, not just where you are, but where you're heading. What patterns are shaping your future? What habits are influencing your direction? What are you holding on to that you know you need to let go of? These questions are not meant to overwhelm you. They're meant to help you see clearly, because clarity leads to change, and change leads to growth. You don't have to fix everything today, but you can start today. You can make one decision. You can take one step. You can choose one area to begin working on, and that one step can lead to another and another and another. Over time, those steps add up, and one day you look back and realize you're not where you used to be. You're stronger, you're clearer, you're moving forward, not because everything became easy, but because you decided to deal with what mattered. So don't ignore it, don't delay it, don't treat it casually. Whatever is in your life that you know is holding you back, deal with it seriously, intentionally, honestly, because your future is shaped by what you choose to confront today. And the life you want is on the other side of that decision.